All right, so the purpose of today's review is to go over the new collection of Invicta Titanium Pro Diver watches that came out in 2021. I haven't seen too many, actually I haven't seen really many videos going over the new color options that are here for the Invicta Titanium Pro Diver. Also talk about another very rare Pro Diver watch that I own in my collection, but I've never seen it reviewed. And then just do kind of a comparison to some other titanium watches. In this particular, I have one here. This is a Tudor Pelagos LHD. And just kind of giving some ideas, the differences in the titanium that's used for Invicta, for Tudor, etc. But before I get into the review, what I wanted to first just kind of talk about is I've been watching some videos recently on YouTube where some watch reviewers who've been doing it for some time talk about, watch collecting, and they essentially say that, collecting these cheaper watches is really kind of nonsense, and you really should save your money up to buy a more expensive watch, and get away from these cheap watches. It's not really watch collecting, and a bunch of other things. And I think my point on that only is that that's complete nonsense. From someone who's been collecting watches for 20 years and has, as a watch collector, I've bought and sold many watches for my collection just because I get tired of a watch or want to, something else. I've had every brand you can imagine, from Jaeger-LeCoultre, Zenith, Rolex, Tudor, IWC, Panerai, Vacheron Constantin, every brand you can think of. I have either owned the watch at one point in time or have enjoyed it. And I'm also an amateur watchmaker, so I've actually, know how to change the crystals, regulate the movements. Nothing too complicated, but some simple things. I can't overhaul an entire movement, but I certainly can fix some of the pieces if there's something wrong with it, such as a loose rotor, the date maybe not advancing, things like that. In any case, I just want to say that, no matter what your watch collection entails, it doesn't matter the price point. If you have a collection of high-end watches, hey, that's great. If you have a collection of Invicta watches that are, range from prices of $100 or less, that's fantastic as well. And I'm going to show you today why I think these watches are fantastic. And one specific Invicta that have never been reviewed before, why this watch is one of my favorites, literally almost as favorite as my Pelagos LHD. So let's get started. I'm going to move these other watches out of the way, and I want to focus in first on the new color options for the Invicta Pro Diver Titanium. Now, these watches have been out for a while. They were actually out in all black without this bezel. It was just literally a black dial with the aluminum insert black bezel. But since then, the Invicta has come out with some different color options, and these are available on Shop HQ. The prices here, you can get these for around $100, which is really puts it, affordability for pretty much any watch collector out there. And that's why I love these watches. Now, I did one slight modification to this watch, and I want to be very clear. What you're going to notice on the date window is that there's no bubble. These watches do come with a magnifier over the date window. I have removed it. There's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to do that. Essentially, take a micro torch and you heat up the glue that holds that the bubble or the date window, the bubble over the crystal. Take some tweezers, pull it off, then you clean up that area using alcohol or whatever, rubbing alcohol, for example, and it'll come right off. You can do it with the hair dryer, but I don't recommend it. I just think it can damage some of the other parts of it. The micro torch will really localize that heat to where it needs to get to. Anyways, it's the only modification done on this watch. I just think it looks cleaner. The date is very legible even from a distance. So there's really no need for that bubble. I think it's a cleaner look. Anyways, this here is the Invicta Blue. That color, some people love it, some people hate it. It looks kind of purple sometimes, but you can see in the light, it's definitely a nice color if you do like this color. And they paired this with, again, aluminum insert, red on the bottom and blue on the top, kind of like the Pepsi. This is a 45 millimeter. I have measured it. We can certainly measure it again, but it definitely measures a 45 millimeter. You can see on the side here, it says Invicta. You have a screw down crown with a polish here with the Invicta logo right there. The case back, or let's talk about the bracelet for a second here. It comes with a bracelet stamped titanium. It's upside down, but it is stamped titanium. It's a decent bracelet. The end links, as you can see here, are not solid, but that does allow for the watch to flex nicely. And this is a larger watch at 45 millimeters. The lug to lug is decent. If you look at it on a wrist, about 7 3/4 inches, 7 1/4, excuse me. The watch actually is not too bad. It actually hugs the wrist pretty well. It doesn't stick out too much. This watch is about 15 millimeters in thickness, so it is a thick watch, but it doesn't feel that thick because it's titanium and also the way the lugs taper down. So this is one of the color options. The other color option is this green color that they came out with. This green color is a very kind of a bright green. I guess you call it emerald green perhaps, I'm not sure. But it's really a nice color. And I definitely like this green color. And I paired this with an aftermarket fabric strap. You can buy these on Amazon. They have the quick release right there. They're like less than $5. And again, I forgot to talk about the rotor, but the movement on here is the NH35A. It's Seiko movement. These run around $50 to $60 wholesale cost. A lot of micro brands tend to use these movements. Only thing they did on this movement is they put kind of almost like a yellow sticker over the rotor to kind of make it stand out. But it looks nice when the movement's running. You know, you have a little bit of contrast there versus I've seen on Deep Blue, for example, on their rotors, they just have it, you know, in the basic stainless steel color. So I definitely like that. That's the other color option. And of course, the last one here is really not a changing color. They already offered the black dial, but they put the bezel now has this kind of Coke, I guess you call it the Coke bezel. It has a blue on the bottom, and it has the black on top. Now, what's interesting is the blue color here is I guess it's the same color, but as the blue here, but the watch, you know, this blue doesn't really match the blue on the dial. I feel like it looks pretty clean here with the blue and the black. It has a little bit of color versus the all black one. So that's the only changes they made. Again, the rest of the watch is the same. Now, 45 millimeter watch for $100. I think that's phenomenal. I don't know how you really can do better than $100 for all solid titanium watch. Now, is this a high grade titanium? No, of course not. But for that price point, you're going to get a really nice watch. And on the fabric strap, you'll see it really hugs the wrist nicely. And again, I'm a 7 1/4 wrist. This watch, even though it's 45 millimeter, it doesn't look too big. It looks actually just perfect. Now, you know, would I have loved for them to make a 43 millimeter version of this watch? Absolutely. What I wanted to do is compare this to a watch I've never seen reviewed before anywhere, and that is another Invicta Titanium watch. This one here is the Invicta Titanium Meteorite, and this one is a beauty. It's got a Meteorite dial. I forgot to mention, all these watches do not have sapphire crystals. They just have they're called flame fusion or mineral crystals. They're going to scratch if you rub it against something that's hard enough. But look at that dial. That dial is just, you know, the striations on the dial, it just are very, very, really, really nice. But what I notice here is the red color they use here is very different than the red color that is on this watch. So it's a little bit pinker here. Nonetheless, this is another titanium. The difference is on this one, it comes with the Jubilee bracelet. Now look at that. Really smooth and extremely lightweight. The other cool thing is it comes with solid end links versus the other one there that has the end links that are hollow. Also, on the side of the watch here, it's about 12.3 millimeters in thickness, and it's not stamped anything with Invicta here. It's clean. I prefer that actually over the Invicta stamp, or Invicta, I should say the Invicta, just writing the Invicta name. The crown is similar. I've noticed the crown is, if you compare these two, it's basically a little bit longer, but a little bit not as, I guess, wide but it looks a little bit thicker. I guess that's kind of the length I'm talking about. So that's the main difference in this watch, but there's also one major difference. Again, also I took out the bubble as well. The main difference in this watch and why this one is not available anywhere, and I have not seen it offered on eBay, Chrono24, nowhere, is because this watch doesn't come with an NH35A movement. This watch comes, and of course, let me just, I forgot to mention, also the deployment here is a lot nicer than the one they have the other one. This one comes with a SW300 movement, and as you can see, that rotor is decorated, and that's not a sticker. Now, it still comes with plastic movement holder, which is not great, but okay, for this price point, I guess that's what they did. But this movement here is basically the equivalent of ATA 2892. Why this watch is so, in my opinion, one of the best values that you can get your hands on one. These watches came out around, I want to say $300 or $400 on Shop HQ when they had them. They sold out of these quick. I don't think they had more than 100 of these watches in the entire country. The reason is that the SW300 movements are very hard to get, and they're not cheap. The wholesale cost on those are somewhere north of $200 for that movement. It is a much better movement than the SW200, which is very commonly used in a lot of Swiss watches. Typically under $1,000, some even more than $1,000. Typically use the ETA 2024, also the SW200, essentially the same caliber, is a clone of the movement. But the SW300 is a much higher grade movement. The timing on this watch, I have adjusted it, but it's plus or minus to COSC standards. I mean, this movement is phenomenal. And you can see the reason also that it's thinner is that the dial is closer to the crystal. And if you compare it to this one, you can see the major difference there. The depth from the crystal to the dial, the rehaut there is a lot larger, and this one's a lot thinner. You can see the thickness difference, by the way, is pretty massive. Again, 15 millimeters thickness here versus about 12.3. Also, the bezel kind of angles down here, where here this one kind of is flat coming out. And again, there's a comparison there on the two. And you can see the bracelet is, the solid, not solid end links, I should say here. The hollow end links here versus a solid end links on here. This one, in my opinion, if you can get your hands on it, I don't know where you get it, but if you can get one of these, it's one of the best values. I don't think you're going to find a titanium watch with a Jubilee bracelet, which is the most comfortable bracelet I've ever worn. If you can get this ring for anything less than $300, $400, even $500, it is a best buy. Now, what I wanted to do is just show you another titanium watch, which is, some of you may be familiar with this one. This is the Tudor Pelagos LHD. Now, this one's kind of interesting. It's got the kind of the patina lume on that one, which is more vintage. It also has a roulette date wheel. So on the even days, it's red. On the odd days, it's black. And it does have the red lettering for Pelagos right there. What I wanted to do, the reason I'm showing this watch is just that, this one is titanium, but it also has steel. So the weight of this one is definitely not lightweighted by any means. It actually feels quite heavy. If we measure it out, I'm just setting my scale up here in a second, but I did measure it. It's about 100 and... Here, I'll put this on the scale. It's about 141 grams. So if you can see that, that's pretty heavy, at least for a titanium watch. If you compare it to this watch right here, the Invicta Meteorite watch, this one is about 99. So a difference of almost 40 grams. And then if you compare it to this Invicta right here, which is the Pro Diver, and I'm going to open this up here to make it a little bit easier. Doesn't want to stay. Well, it's close enough. That's about 119 grams. So this one's heavier than the other one, but obviously not as heavy as the Tudor. Now, the reason for that is because the Tudor uses this deployment buckle right here, actually is stainless steel. And they use it for strength, and you can see right there, It says, I believe, titanium and steel inox. Yep, right there. It's kind of hard to read, but if you can see that. Yep, right there. Also, the case back, I guess for pressurization, just because they had for the tooling they needed to be able to secure this, they just couldn't use titanium, so that's also stainless steel. So that adds a lot to the weight. I think if you took those two things off, I think the weight would probably be down considerably. But you can see the grade of titanium that we're talking about here. This, of course, has a helium escape valve, obviously water resistant to, this one is 500 meters versus 200 meters here. You can see that this is obviously a thicker watch. The Tudor Pelagos, of course, the water resistancy, of course, is going to be much, much thicker. But the grade of titanium is obviously a higher grade on the Tudor Pelagos versus the Invicta. However, this watch also retails for over $4,200, I think $4,500 around there. So you're talking about a $4,500 watch versus a watch like this that's about $300 to $400, or a watch like this that's $100. Now, I love both watches, but which one do I wear more? The Invicta. Number one, the dial variation, the colors are great. I mean, sometimes when I want to play tennis, I love wearing this green one. This green one is just great. I mean, I love wearing it. It's so lightweight. It's a comfortable watch to wear all day around the house, going out for grocery shopping, the kids at the park, whatever. It's just a great watch. And I really enjoy wearing this one. You can see the date starting to change here as it's a little bit late, but the date doesn't change just at 12. It does start to kind of slowly change. But all of these watches, in my opinion, these Invicta, these are the new line of Invicta watches, came out for $100. I consider them Best Buy. They're just phenomenal watches for the price. I mean, literally you could buy 3 of these, and still for about less than 10% of the price of this watch right here. And it's not that this watch isn't a phenomenal watch. I mean, it's in-house movement, 70-hour power reserve. It's a fantastic watch, but, I don't necessarily think this watch is that there's a comparison that has to be made that you have to save up to buy this watch. No, I think these watches are fantastic. And if $100 is in your budget, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these 3 watches here. So that's the review today. Any questions or comments about how I can do better in the future reviews, please let me know. But again, the Invicta Titanium Pro Divers are fantastic watches for the value. Again, this one, the green one, I've seen it sold out pretty often on Shop HQ. These 2 are normally available. If you get these watches, I highly recommend pairing them with these fabric straps. You can put your own nylon fabric straps that you have. I've seen some Velcro ones, but they're just with these on there. They are super lightweight. In fact, I forgot to weigh those. But with the fabric strap, I believe, here, let me just weigh this quickly. This one goes down to about 70 grams, about 81 grams, and that's also because these are steel, by the way. But about 75 to 80 grams, depending on what fabric strap you use, which I think is just super lightweight, super comfortable. 200 meters water resistance, can't go wrong. Anyways, thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed the review. Again, any comments, feedback, let me know. Thanks so much.